Hello there, my fellow Julia colleagues. Today we're going to talk about NLP, that stands for Natural Language Processing, which is the analysis of text coming from human speech or human writings. I'm Felipe and I'm going to guide you through this topic today. So first I want to show you some slides. I'm actually a researcher, an MD, and a postdoc researcher that's interested in mental health and mental disorders. So for us, thought disorders matter, and the way people communicate and how they structure their thoughts in terms of language is one of the windows that we have to look at the underlying cognitive processes. The first technique that we're going to cover today, and it's related to the semantic trajectories package in Julia, it's called semantic embeddings. So what we do is each of these words, it becomes embedded, becomes a representation of it in an abstract space. That's not like your usual space that has 3 dimensions, but one of 300 dimensions. And in this space here, the distance between these words, for instance, if you take the cosine between these 2 words here, it may resemble some underlying meaning. For instance, these words here together, they are quite associated with their counterparts in the male gender. Alright, the next technique that we cover is the one of graph embeddings. So basically take the original sentence here, I walked into a place and I found my grandma, and we do a graph based on that. So every time a word is repeated, for instance, he starts with I and he repeats this I here, then we get a loop. And based on this, we also can get a grasp of how each type of speech is represented in here. Alright, for this application, we got the text graphs packages. This was something that we wrote to calculate density, centrality, and analyze this type of text using open source software that was not very readily available. That's the story of how we came to develop this package, and this is the package itself. The speech here, the lightning talk, is not about package development, but it's worth to take a look at the basic structure of it. If you are new to Julia or getting acquainted with, it's a nice project. You have good documentation, the continuous integration, there are tests going on to check the functionalities of a package, and that's where we start from. For instance, you can take a simple sentence here. This phrase here was actually invented by Chomsky, like colorless green ideas leap furiously. That's a phrase that's grammatically correct, but at the same time it doesn't convey a very clear meaning. And we can take this sentence here, we can transform it into a graph. We can get the number of vertices and edges in this graph. We can obtain the original words that were in that label, and we can also calculate some properties, as I mentioned, like the density and the average centrality, the eigenvector centrality, and others. Alright, and this is the main source code. Here are the ecosystems, the Julia ecosystems that we are leveraging, and this is where the code is contained. If you think the project's nice, drop a star, reach me out, direct message. So in order to see these applications, I recommend you to come here at the PsyArchives server, and we have our white paper here. You can download it for free, and it will grant you access to a vignette. This is a lightning talk, so I cannot cover all the technical details, and this paper gets it for you. And it also has a small tutorial on how to install Julia, how to install the dependencies, and a basic vignette to show the capabilities. But the pipeline is not very complicated. You just take the raw text, you transform it into a graph, either with pre-processing or not, and then you use the native functions to get the properties out of those graphs, and to return a dictionary with these properties, like the mean close centrality, the size of the largest strongest connected component, the density, and intuitions along with the formal definition of each of these properties is here on the white paper. We take the task of analyzing a text from a poet that has several heteronyms, that is right about pseudonyms, and we see that they are similar but fairly different, the properties between different texts. Alright, so beside text graphs, we also have a second package that was developed that's called semantic trajectories. It's focused on latent semantics. That's something that's already present in literature, but it mixes latent semantics with dynamic consistence, recurrence quantification analysis, RQA. So RQA is useful to analyze dynamic consistence, kind of complicated, complex trajectories. And it has a few measures that help us to quantify, for instance, how regular is that trajectory, how often it goes through the same paths, how similar are the paths that it takes, how predictable they are, and so on. And we use this to characterize the trajectories that happen in latent spaces, which yields quite interesting findings for us. So I hope you liked this talk here. If you are interested in a package, or if you are interested in contributing, just reach us out on GitHub or Twitter and give us a shout.